documenting the Nigerian story.
But in a situation where you find that a person look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying with us. And if you are just joining, you're watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak. And we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. We have the first story, that's the lead story now, talking about Boko Haram. It says, we spent $1 billion to retrieve territories, says Buhari. The writer says, terrorism financing want to split Nigeria. Other stories above the lead story now, you will also find Nigeria to raise 400 billion naira per month through bond sales. And you also have UN ECOWAS warn Nigeria against election violence. The next story says, mass resignation hits BBC Hausa. You also have, beside the pictorial there, INEC to conduct mock accreditation ahead of polls. That's on page 12. Paris Club refund, court summons Emefiele over $53 million judgment debt. You also would find youths burn Niger police station to protest Catholic priests killing on page 6. Vigilantes injure bride's eye during wedding party. And then you have the last story at the bottom there says, raise to NAS, Etiosa. Obani Koro's son, Banky W, set for replay battle. Now, these are some of the major stories on the Daily Trust newspaper. We'll take a look at...
All right, the next newspaper we're looking at is the This Day newspaper, and it carries this major story on the front page. ECWA President Church will announce presidential choice soon. And it comes with riders here that says Northern Christians already settled for Atiku, says Dogara. Muslim ticket recipe for disaster, former Vice President warns. In Ekiti, PDP candidate promises to prioritize human development. And INEC hails ECOWAS Commission over dialogue with parties ahead of elections. And still talking about the elections, INEC will hold elections despite attacks on facilities, Yakubu insists. Details of that can be found on page 9. And MRA to APC-PCC, your blatant disregard for journalist rights portends grave danger for media. That is another story on the front page of the This Day newspaper. And right above the nameplate there, cash withdrawal limit, banks suspend transactions via Naira credit, prepaid cards. And that is on page 5. And right at the top of the front page there, Federal Gov FG, Nigeria has enough external reserves to withstand global recession and shocks. And riders here that say Mull's gradual removal of petrol subsidy from April, says quantitative easing strategy impacting interest rates, and Senate gives Minister 3-day ultimatum to submit 23.7 trillion naira ways and means details. And of course, the pictorial there is about on the president receiving the award for strengthening peace in Africa. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the This Day newspaper.
All right, on the Punch newspaper this morning, the lead story there says, police presence at Emefiele's Abuja home stirs controversy. CBN governor expected to appear in court today over $53 million judgment debt. Police deny arrest move. DSS says deputy governors not quizzed. You also would have other stories above the masthead. Subsidy, FG borrowing to import fuel, says minister. $1 billion spent to recover territories seized by terrorists, according to President Buhari. Over 500,000 security personnel to man polling booths. Now, you have below the pictorial there, a new VC promises to make Unilag Solution Center. At the bottom there, National Assembly to OK 22.7 trillion debt restructuring Tuesday. Slain lawyer buried, cleric consoles family. 13 billion naira drugs, military hardware seized at Lagos Airport. These are the main stories on the Punch newspaper this morning.
Now let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper, and this is the major story on the front page. An easy calm at CBN as officials grapple with integrity issues. And riders here to say CBN, DSS downplay, dismiss Emefiele arrest saga as speculative. Officials not in DSS custody, Apex Bank insists, and ADI integrity of system completely compromised. And still talking about the Guardian newspaper, towards the bottom of the front page there, Google removes 3.4 billion ads, suspends 5.6 million advertisers in Nigeria, others. And that is on the business page of the Guardian, which is page 15. And right at the very bottom there, 2023, we are ready. INEC Chair Yakubu insists at Chatham House, and that is on page 6. Now, moving towards the top of the front page, talking about politics now, CNPP asks Tinubu Atiku to withdraw from presidential race over alleged misdeeds. You can find that story on page 3. Senate demands details of 23.7 trillion naira CBN facility to federal government, and that is on page 4. Crisis in Abia PDP over Ikone's absence, and will soon name our preferred presidential candidate, Wike declares. Details of that can be found on page 29. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Guardian news, the Nation newspaper this morning. And the lead story there talks about Atiku plans sale of nation's assets to allies, says Tinubu. You also would find other stories above the masthead. Buhari, Boko Haram sponsors' aim was to split Nigeria. Don't behave like ASU, Ngige tells New Union Konyo. You also have why we upgrade Emmanuel Alayade College to varsity. China's population drops by 850,000 in latest survey. Governors to engage CBN on Naira redesign. INEC won't succumb to security threats. And then you have other stories. APC candidates urges Kwara to sustain political freedom. Uzodinma, Remi Tinubu rally Southeast women. Now, these are the main stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. Now, let's get perspectives to some of these stories as we have them this morning. We have Ben Sheman, the former Director of News, Voice of Nigeria, with us in the studio to talk about some of these stories. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you very much. Good to be former.
Yes, right. All right, well, the CBN story, it keeps evolving from one dimension to another. We are seeing this summon of the central bank governor. For some, it's more like the central bank governor is in the eye of the storm, perhaps being persecuted for his for the new CBN policy. I don't know. Those are some of the speculations by some. But here we have this Paris Club refund saga again. The summon, he's supposed to appear in court today.
Yes. The case for today has nothing to do with the new currency redesign and presentation, but it has to do with what they call judgment debtor and judgment creditor. Paris Club. What happened was, yes, there were deductions, and a judgment was entered against the CBN. If you never appealed, it means you've accepted. And that being the case, CBN paid an amount that fine, a kind of, and never honored their obligations again. So the judge is now feeling, look, my court is not a disco hall where you dance any kind of a dance. Come, face the law. And that's why he's supposed to be in court today. And it's a huge sum of money, too much trouble for the man who indeed is said to be sick So let's see how he comes out of this, because politically, some people are feeling the man dabbled into politics and became an aspirant. When the cost was not too clear for him, he pulled out. Now, we're talking of INEC at the point was doubting. Now, if this man showed some interest in politics, should INEC take sensitive materials to be kept in CBN as the tradition has always been? You know, as if that wasn't enough, we had Directorate of State Security Services at the point they said, no, they invaded the office. No, it's not so. Now the man has come. We are hearing, oh, as soon as he lands, he'll be arrested. Today we are hearing police personnel are milling around the office, the house. We are again hearing there is credibility question when it comes to the leadership of the CBN. Directors are being questioned here and there. But I hope that will not weaken
even the anti-terrorism allegations.
Exactly.
Also
yes, the state security services are said to be manhunting him because he's alleged to be a terrorist sponsor. So he's back into the country.
Doesn't all this have it's likely going to have an impact on our economy?
Exactly. You see, in some of these developed countries, the moment there is an issue over monetary policies, you just see that the currency drops. Now, here we have multiple fronts. I mean, missiles being sent at the central bank governor. And of course, it's bound to affect the economy. It is. And so we expect that the experts will come in quickly. We expect that those who indeed are his advisors, provided he also listens, they should bring in people-oriented policies that will assist to bring stability.
Could there be a conspiracy, against the CBN governor? Perhaps some people want him out of the office.
Absolutely, yes. Some people feel he has stayed for too long, from Jonathan, PDP to APC. His policies are no longer tenable. But again, there's always two sides of the coin, and even the circle itself. Some people say that's another shape of the coin. So some for, some against, and of course maybe the circle could be those who are neutral. Whatever be the case, that is just how God wants it. So let's see how he comes out of this storm. Will he go today? And will you, as a judge, also want to cast this man into some detention? And so what happens, that makes it worse when it comes to the economy of this country in terms of management.
All right, well, talking about managing things now, a story that's making the rounds, which is actually the major story on the front page of the Daily Trust, says we spent $1 billion to retrieve territories. That's concerning the Boko Haram issue. At one point, the federal government was actually adamant that there was no territory that was was occupied. And at the end of the day, they conceded that some territories actually were. Now we're getting the cost of that operation to retrieve back those territories. $1 billion was spent to actually do this. And there are still speculations there are still some pockets of territories that are still under the control of these terrorists. Are we doing enough?
I think even if we are not doing enough, we are doing so well. Let us face the reality. If at the point, around 2015, elections had to be postponed, around 2015, you could see all sorts of bombing here and there. Then, of course, the architecture had to be changed, and in changing the architecture, you also needed the equipment. Ibrahim, you see, equipment that you need to fight in the Niger Delta. After the Niger Delta crisis, you can't take them to go fight in desert areas. They are all different. Even when you look at the camouflage that the military will wear, you have to design them to suit the environment in which you're going for operations. And of course, when you're talking of the hardware, the very hardware, it was then we had of Super Tucanos. And I remember going to some areas that were swampy. I could see military, I don't know whether I'm supposed to be saying all of it, at the point some military tanks got stuck inside mud, which also means that at that point they were not supposed to be in that kind of environment. So when you demand for very high caliber kind of equipment, you also have to study the environment. If we were having helicopters that could not fly in the night, and you now say, okay, let's have Super Tucanos, what do they entail? Those who are supposed to design that will have to come see your environment. How do you fly them? And with that, you now go back to manufacture. Then when you manufacture, you also have to train those who indeed are supposed to operate them. And therefore, look, when you fire a single bullet, dollars are gone. So I won't be surprised if the president is saying all of this. And those service chiefs that were again accused, they chop money, they spend this and that, it was when they left that this equipment started coming. Why is it so? Because it will have to take a lot of plans. I usually give the example of my station where I used to work. You see, we are into shortwave broadcasting. And by the time we were looking for, if you check these bizarre looking antennas around Lube, along the airport road, you see, Tomcast had to come in. They did feasibility studies where they're going to mount these, did some engineering work before they went back to manufacturing. Time, therefore, was spent so much waiting. And I think it was also what happened in the case of the military. But when you now hear, oh, they chopped the money and left, truly, I think that when you begin to see some things, you begin to appreciate what the president is saying.
And again, looking at the budgets that we've always, the budgetary allocation of the defense and the rest of them, you find that a chunk of that budgetary allocation goes to recurrent expenditure, not necessarily in terms of capital spendings, you know. And so sometimes, like for instance now, if you look at the 2023 budget, you have more than 1 trillion naira budgeted for the defense. But if you carefully study the disbursement and the allocation that is going to the different arms and the different sectors, you find that recurrent expenditure, salaries and welfare of personnel and the rest of them takes a chunk of that money. So at the end of the day, not much really is spent on the issue of equipment and the rest of them.
Yeah, you see, incidentally, what you call procurement, what belongs to, you can't do environment without going back to the National Assembly. If you say this money is for helicopters, you cannot take it to go buy, printers. They are different subheads completely. Now, the military operates in Nigeria. Today we don't have fuel. There is no magic meant just for the military in terms of fuel supply. You are moving equipment, you need this fuel. So where's the fuel? They still have to buy the way you are buying. There's no special depot for the military. They still have to get it the way you are getting it. So when it comes to welfare too, truly you send people to trenches. Someone left Calabar to Sokoto, somebody left Sokoto to Lagos, somebody left Lagos to Maiduguri. And there are a million points there. They have to have means of movement. They have to have means of feeding, not to talk about those who indeed have been injured here and there. They all have to be taken care of. You see, and that's why the new spokesman for the defense, General Tukur Gusau, he was saying, look, the military, as we have it, is Nigerian-made. And Nigeria is a territory, a definite territory for citizens who indeed must live in peace. Therefore, he's even calling down on the media. Let the military not a kind of begin to give the strength, the coverage, the screaming headlines to Boko Haram, as opposed to what the military is doing. I mean, if you give the military that kind of a support, and you bring the awareness. I mean, it's just going to be a good thing for the country.
Most of the media practitioners actually say that they are not aware of what the military is actually doing, and it's probably they get the information maybe after the fact or through second-hand sources and not direct from the military as well. And they're actually calling on the military to give to make the information available to the media, and the media are saying that that information is not there for them.
Yes, let me give an example here. I remember we were going for operations, and I happened to be in the convoy of Buratai, Chief of Army Staff then, and we were waylaid by Boko Haram. Honestly, soldiers were killed, you know. Now, I was in a communications vehicle where you could see almost running a commentary like football match. We lost so soldiers, we lost this. I was busy taking note to see what will come out of it. Will the soldiers bring out these figures I'm hearing? And truly, when a statement came out from Kukasheka that time, the spokesman then, he's a retired officer now, it turned out to be what I was hearing was exactly the figures that came out. So I had the opportunity of asking Burata, I had the opportunity of asking Kukasheka. In fact, General Tukur was in that convoy. I said, you guys actually came out with figures the way I was hearing in the communication vehicle. He said, look, we are talking of people who have families. We are talking of lives. And should we lie and say 2 soldiers were killed when indeed there were 8? Now, by the time you want to bury, how do you account for this? And so, some of these things, I was hearing that information firsthand. But truly, why will I begin to shout to the world that so soldiers have been killed, these are their names, and the loved ones are hearing that incidentally from me for the first time? I think it's another killer. You remember the plane crash in Ejubo, where some cameramen did close focus on victims and even their belongings. And it was from there some loved ones got to know that they have lost people. And of course, you could see the boomeranging effect on such a family. So sometimes it's nice that if the journalists will say we get from second hand, you still have to confirm and reconfirm, so that you don't say so person is dead, suddenly you see him addressing the press. So I think we have to, even the developed world, you see that they have embedded correspondence. And I wish to also say that at the point, sometimes you see me in some military attire, I go to Maiduguri, I meal with them. Many people, many media houses do have correspondence, either being sent from Abuja or some other places, Lagos, to those areas. Apart from correspondence who are based in these areas of operations. And sometimes when we go to Maiduguri, we meet them, we move as a group. They all are treated the way every other person is treated. And there are times members of the international BBC, VOA, Deutsche Welle, France 24, you see them coming into this place. And I do have some connections with BBC, with RFI, Radio France International, and Deutsche Welle. Sometimes they request, how do we enter Nigeria? And I said, this is how we're going to do it. We go through information, and of course, through the embassy too, and before you know it, they get clearance via the military, and they go to see things. And it's not as if it's a brick wall there where they cannot see anything over there. Okay. But again, we are guided by conscience. Will you see a dead man with the name tag, everything? You now splash it on the media circle to show you a hero.
Now, we also have another story that is generating some reactions yesterday, the appearance of the INEC chair at the Chatham House, not only him, but even all the presidential candidates that have been going there. Now, Chatham House being a think tank, feel the need to invite, all the major stakeholders to talk about the 2023 general elections. And some people are saying that we have our own Chatham House in Nigeria. Why are we not doing it here? Why do we have to go there? And this is something that is gradually becoming like a ritual, really, almost every election cycle. So what's your take on this?
Sure. You see this thing we call information flow, north versus south, in terms of information flow. Which one is just a receiver and which one is sending? And when they send, you receive, and it begins to have the effects on you. Now, why will everyone be going to Chatham House? I want to go as if that is the only yardstick in terms of winning elections. Now, Chatham House also do us a favor. Come to Nigeria. Let us come and see. You sit down with us and let these people talk to you, talk to Nigerians in here. Because they are busy making the money for those that, you enter the British Airways, go stay in their hotel, pay in their currencies over there. Let them also come in here, begin to see some things, so that you say, look, we've gone to Maiduguri, we've gone to Sokoto, we've gone to Zangon Katab, we've gone to Aliade, we've gone to all sorts of people, and with that, they can now come. Presidential candidate. We've gone to these places in Nigeria. We didn't see this. And of course, what do you intend to do? You're over there in London, and now when they say, vote for me, you are voting for health. Vote for me, you are voting for good roads. Vote for me, you are voting for a nice railway system. Look, we want Chatham House to come in here, spend a week or two going around this country. You now engage these people, either at the International Conference Center or a place of your choice, so that we also know, yes, you actually mean well for us. Let us also benefit from you. It shouldn't just be that you direct, come. We're also saying, come to us. And not that we'll always be going there. Come to us too.
Okay, thank you so much for the perspectives. That's so much we can take. The former Director of News, Voice of Nigeria, Ben Shemang, our guest reviewer on Daybreak this morning. We look forward to having you again.
My pleasure as usual. Thank you.
All right. Now we'll take a short break, and when we return, Daybreak continues. Join us again.
But in a situation where you find that a party look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that